the Talk Station is proud to present The War Files. The War Files, a selection of interviews honoring our warriors of the greatest generation, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Your name?
Abe Thurman.
And where are you from?
Newark, New Jersey.
Tell me a little something about your background.
Well, my father was a mechanic. He worked with the Public Service Electric and Gas Company. He worked over the gas company over in Harrison, New Jersey, which is right outside of Newark. And my mother was just a housewife. I had two sisters and one brother.
Where were you when the war started?
I was in A&T College. I was going across the campus, getting ready to go to lunch at that time.
Now we're talking about North Carolina A&T College
North Carolina.
In Greensboro.
That's right, in Greensboro.
Why did you pick North Carolina A&T?
Well, in Newark, I took college prep. So in all of my classes, there were no black students. So because very few black students were going to college at that time. Of course, when I graduated from high school, my mother and father wanted me to go to New York University. I was right across the river. But I said, if I go over there then, it'd be the same thing as high school. And I had been telling them ever since I was in the fourth grade, I'm going to college. And they laughed at me. They said, well, if you guys say so and you want to go, we'll go. And so my homeroom teacher was a Latin teacher, Miss Gotzi. She worked real hard with me picking schools. Of course, I told her I want to go to a historically black college. And so she told me how to do the things, writing to the registrar and getting information and so forth. And somehow A&T sent me a brochure of pictures of what's going on. And I saw all those pretty girls in there and so forth. And I said, well, this is for me. And so that's how I picked it. Mm-hmm.
All right, now you were walking across campus when the news broke about the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Well, when somebody said Pearl Harbor, somebody said, Pearl Harbor, what's that? we knew a war was brewing, but we didn't think anything that we would be in it so soon. And so we had no idea that we would be in it because A&T was an ROTC school, and so every one of the boys in there had to take 2 years of ROTC. And if you want to continue, you could take an advanced ROTC for your junior and senior years, and then you could earn a commission, later on after you graduated.
Now, what year were you at North Carolina A&T?
I started in September '39. And so when I went in the Navy, I had completed 3 years.
What were you studying at college?
Pre-med.
But you had other activities and things that you did. Let's talk about that.
I was on the boxing team for 1 year. The reason I got on the boxing team, they said you eat at the training table and so forth. And then the band director said, now look, you got to make up your mind what are you going to do either band or boxing.
All right, let's talk about the band because that leads into the story in your Navy career.
I was self-taught. I self-taught myself the trumpet.
The trumpet.
That's right. And so when I got to A&T, they had too many trumpet players. And so the band director said, well, I'm going to send you to the assistant band director, and he'll pick out an instrument for you. And so the band director was a German guy named Ahern. And the way he talked to me, he dared me to play the piccolo. And I said, piccolo? And he picked out a little thing about that long and he said, nobody has been able to play it. And so I said, he's challenging me. And so that's what happened. That's how I happened to pick the piccolo. All I had to do was adjust to the piccolo, learn the notes and so forth, and the sounds and things. And in 6 months, I had it partially conquered. And then after the next 2 years, I really improved on that instrument because I became one of the top musicians in the college band.
All right, now you're a junior at North Carolina A&T when the war breaks out.
That's right.
And you were in ROTC. Were you okay?
And I had completed my ROTC. Of course, I didn't take advanced ROTC.
All right. The war breaks out. What was your reaction? What did you do?
Well, I had never signed for the draft because the draft was 21, and I was 20. So I didn't have any idea what I was going to do. My main thing I wanted to do was just finish college and so forth. And I imagine if this idea of the band had not come up, I probably would have been a doctor.
Okay.
What happened? One of the fellows that was taking the chemistry courses with me, He was not a musician. He stayed. He graduated. And then the Army took him in and said, well, we'll send you to med school. You just give us 4 years after you finish. And he became a doctor. Now, I could have done the same thing. I joined the band.
Did you join the Navy band, or did you join the Navy and then they selected you for the band?
They sent a band director to pick us up. In other words, his idea was to take the whole college band in toto. They wanted a band. In other words, I think it was about sometime in April. They said they were going to. In other words, they said they were going to have 4 pre-flight schools. There were one at North Carolina, one at Georgia, one at Iowa, and one at St. Mary's in California.
What pre-flight schools you said?
4 pre-flight schools, yeah.
Okay, and one of them, of course, being, I guess, what, UNC Chapel Hill?
That's right.
All right.
So they said at the one at Chapel Hill, they wanted an all-black band, and Chapel Hill was the only one that would accept it, other than St. Mary's. Georgia said no. Iowa said no. And so St. Mary's accepted one, and North Carolina accepted it. And our first practice after New Year's, 42, there was a fellow in a uniform sitting, with our band director, and we wondered what is he doing there. And so we just started practicing as per usual. And after we played a few numbers, he stood up and said, "Well, I would like to have all of you." And we said, what is that man talking about? So the band director had to explain to us what he was looking for. He was looking for musicians to join the Navy. At that time, the Navy did not have any black musicians, and the School of Music was segregated. So in order to get black musicians, they had to be either college or pros or professional musicians.
Wow.
And so North Carolina did not have that many professional musicians. So the best way to get black musicians was go to the college.
Abe Thurman, our guest, and I did not know that is how they established the band. That's so they basically recruited the entire band from North Carolina.
Recruited.
Oh, okay. How many of the band members signed up?
I think 23.
Out of how many?
The college band had 50 members, and they got 23 of them.
Well, what was the pitch to get you to join the Navy?
Well, what they said, you would be stationed in Chapel Hill for the duration of the war. And that was just about maybe 40 miles from Greensboro. See? So those fellas said, well, that wouldn't be too bad. And we could stay there the duration of the war. So everybody didn't join at one time, you know that. So they picked different times. And I was in the last group because my mother and father didn't want me to join anyway. They don't want me to join anything. They said, wait till you're drafted. I said, no. I said, this is a better chance for me. I said, I can do what I want to do. I said, if I'm drafted, I didn't want to be a foot soldier to start with. And of course, I didn't care for that military stuff in the first place. There were guns and so forth. I still don't care too much about guns and things of that sort. But so since they said, well, you'll be just as good in playing the band. That's what the Navy told us. He said, because he said music is really important in the Navy. He said we depend on a lot of that stuff in music. And so from that point on, well, it took us a long time, because in order for us to be accepted in the Navy, the Congress had to change the law. And in April, they changed the law that the Navy could accept black sailors other than mess attendants and stewards. At that time, that's all they accepted, mess attendant and steward. And also, at that time during the draft, the Navy never did accept the draftees until later on into the war.
You joined up in April '42 to become a member of the Navy band. Mm-hmm. Did you end up going to Chapel Hill?
We couldn't. In other words, we took the exam they gave us and so forth. The musical exam. Mm-hmm. We had physicals, early physical, but we couldn't be sworn in until they passed that law. And so after they passed the law in April, the Chapel Hill wanted us so badly that they said, well, all right, we'll take you in May. Now we were supposed to go to Camp Robert Small in Chicago, but Camp Robert Small was being built for the black sailors, but it wasn't finished. And so the only place in Chapel and the pre-flight school kept saying, "We need the band, we need the band, we need the band." And so they said, "All right, we'll take you in. We'll take you, put them in Norfolk." So they sent us to Norfolk along with the mess attendants and the stewards. But we were isolated all by ourselves. We were not with the white sailors. We weren't with the black sailors. We did all our training in one group, just a band.
What was involved in the training?
Well, regular Navy stuff.
Marching?
Yeah, and the Navy Blue Book, and as they call it, and all that, and everything else. But our forte was marching. We knew how to march already because being a college band, we knew how to march, so there wasn't any problem in the marching. Only thing we had to do was learn the Navy ideas of how to play things and how they wanted you to play and things that sort.
How long were you in Norfolk before you were sent out to, I guess, back to Chapel Hill?
We were supposed to stay there 6 weeks, but the building in Chapel Hill wasn't finished. See, we couldn't live on a campus, so they had to have a building. They were building a community building in town down near Carborough.
Okay.
And it's a Hargrave Center now. But the Navy said, well, let us use the building, we'll finish it for you and turn it over to you after the war. And the black citizens said, well, that'd be fine. So we had to stay there until the building got ready in Norfolk, until the building got ready. And so we may stay 3 extra weeks. And while we staying there 3 extra weeks, we still worked. That meant the Norfolk Navy Band, they got off. They got on Liberty and we substituted for them. They said you need some training, so they had graduations every Saturday. Somebody graduated every Saturday, so we played for the reviews every Saturday.
Abe, you were self-taught as a trumpeter and I guess piccolo player. Mm-hmm. What instrument did you end up playing for the band?
I played piccolo and flute.
How about the trumpet?
I played trumpet in the dance group.
All right. But let's talk about this. You moved to Chapel Hill. Mm-hmm. What gigs did you do?
Well, what happened when an installation as big as that was in Chapel Hill, just like Cherry Point, they had 2 commanding officers. One handled the V-12 and V-6 program. Somebody handled the cadet program. And I imagine there was around 3,000 or 4,000 men on that group and so forth. So I mean, we played for both of them. But most of our duties was with the cadets. Of course, we played formations for them, going to classes, and we played dances. We act as the football when the band during football season and the basketball season and the baseball season. We played bond rallies. We even played a boat launching in Wilmington, and the local high schools wanted us. We played there, and we even had a little basketball team that would go and play for the high schools so they could generate money. And of course, we didn't charge anything.
How much playing did you do? I mean, that sounds like an awful lot of you. Must have been playing every day.
Every day except Sunday. Sunday, you had church detail. You raised the flag every day, from Monday through Friday, and Saturday usually inspection day or something like that, and Sunday you had church detail. Only half a band would go, and we played the church detail. We played the cadets at church, and then sometime a small group would play, and in the church. They had the church at Hill Music Hall.
What kind of music did you play?
You name it, we played it. Marches, concert pieces, everything.
How many were in the band after it formed up there in Norfolk and then in Chapel Hill?
Actually, it was supposed to be 45, but we never could get that 45th. We always got to 44, and that was it. And see, what made it easier for us? The most of the leaders in the band were from A&T College, because while we were in A&T, our band director was a whiz. He was a violinist and a clarinetist, and he used to go on concert tours himself because he played violin that well. Of course, he came from Oberlin School of Music, so he was a real good musician, and so he pushed that on us. So he would throw all this march lav and everything right in front of us and everything else. And
how much time did you have to learn the music? Did you have time to rehearse it, or did you have to pretty much be able to sight read it?
Well, we sight read as much as we can, and then it was up to you to get into. And anytime you have study halls or sometime go to the music room and practice it and get the music into practice. That's what we did, see. And at one time I sneaked the piccolo out and took it to the dormitory to practice. I wasn't supposed to do that, and it ran everybody in the dormitory crazy because they shut that noise up. You know, piccolo got a high sound,
right,
and you're going to hear it all through that dormitory.
How were you treated as members of the band by not only the university, but by all these other, well, I'll call them sailors?
We were treated real well because most everything on that base were officer candidates or officers. They only had about 100 enlisted personnel running the base, and we made up almost half of it.
Wow. I got to touch on it. Segregation was real in North Carolina. You came from New Jersey, where there wasn't much segregation. How were you received in North Carolina? How were you received by the folks in the residents of Chapel Hill, for example?
When I first got to North Carolina, I said to myself, "When in Rome, do as the Romans." And so, I knew you had to sit in the back of the bus, so I never rode the bus. I walked everywhere in Greensboro, everywhere I wanted to go. I walked. And I didn't go to the movies that much because you had to sit at the balcony and so forth. I didn't know all about that because when I first got there, some guy being funny told me to go get our tickets, and he sent me to the front office. And I guess they called the police on me and everything else because I tried to buy a ticket in the front. I said, maybe buy the ticket here and then you go around the back and go upstairs. I said, no.
You know, it's an issue to realize that in the midst of a war, we still had this segregationist attitude.
Sure. That's right.
Was there ever, not going to touch it, I'm not going to belabor it, but was there ever resentment? Because I'm just, you know, when the bullets are flying, the one thing all I want is somebody who's of the like mind of me. I don't care about color. I don't care about gender. Was there ever any resentment?
Sometimes we resented it a lot because they had some German prisoners over there, and they were treated much better than we were. Of course, they could eat in the cafeteria over on the campus, and when we couldn't, and so forth. Say, well, look, they treat them German prisoners better than they treat us. But we knew what was happening, and well, we were treated fairly, as they thought. The Navy did the best they could, but we had to contend with the white community. Well, they didn't care for us too much.
Because you were black, or because you were sailors?
Because we were black sailors, and we had the room. We could walk all over the campus like we wanted. Understand? Nobody would bother you. Because the Navy said we can come over there anytime we want to, whether you're on duty or off duty.
All right, tell me about rank, because obviously you've got to have certain ranks within the band. How were you ranked, and what were the jobs of those various ranks?
Well, in the band, you as a musician, you were automatically what they call a petty officer. You start off as third-class petty officer. Mm-hmm. So in the Navy, you have your stripes on your wrist at first. Sailors, third class, second class, first class, and then you start in the petty officer. But in the musician, you start as the third-class petty officer with 3 stripes.
Right.
And so you earn those by auditions and so forth and things of that sort.
Did you stay the entire tour in Chapel Hill?
I we stayed in Chapel Hill 20 months.
And then where did you go?
We went to the Hawaiian Islands. Actually, it was we were. Old Kessing was in charge of recreation down under, where the sailors were on those islands, and he's the one that got us over there because he wanted us to go down there where he was on those islands, where he had an island for recreation for the sailors that were at sea. See. But when we got to that 7th Naval District, Admiral Gormley said, no. He said you can't have this band. We'll give you two 23-piece band, but you can't have this band. Well, see, they had heard about the pre-flight school band, how well we had done that because we did all those formations and everything else and so forth.
Now, and to remind, this at the time was the largest university system in the country. UCLA, I think, was second, but UNC and UCLA were producing the most officers through the V6, V12, and the cadets program. Where did you stay when you arrived in Pearl Harbor? Where did you end up going?
Well, when we first got there, they have a receiving barracks here. Every time you leave or break up and go on changing stations and so forth, they have barracks, what they call receiving barracks. And then down in Pearl Harbor, they have the IE of receiving barracks. So we stayed in IE of receiving barracks until they found a place for us, the place to where we were supposed to be placed, until they put us in, found Manana Barracks.
Now, where is Manana Barracks in relationship to, is it near Pearl Harbor?
It's in Pearl City.
All right.
At Pearl City, all is right on the CAM highway, or what we call it. It's abbreviation for Kamehameha. It was Quonset huts when we got there, but they were building another barracks, which was down below. The Quonset hut was up on a hill, and the new barrack was down lower. And the new barracks are real nice. The whole wooden barracks with 1 and 2 floors. We stayed in one barrack. We were on the second floor. And we were the only ones in the second floor. Nobody else stayed up there with us because, instruments and so forth and things of that sort. And we didn't want any transients going in and out of the music room and all that kind of stuff. So that's why they put us on the top floor, see.
All right, now, what did you end up doing when you were in Pearl Harbor? What kind of, how busy were you?
Well, we were just as busy as we were, maybe busier than we were in Chapel Hill, because we had more places to play. Besides Navy installations, we played someplace Army groups that needed us and so forth. They wanted a little entertaining. They'd ask, and we'd go and play for them. That was that morning when we played colors, and as usual, you have your morning band practice from 9 until about 10:30. And then about 11 o'clock, we got on the bus going to Honolulu and played a concert. This is dance band concert on the USO in Honolulu, the Army Navy USO, and which was broadcast. And
it was broadcast.
It was broadcast. And because when we were playing there, they made an announcement: the plane stopped flying that fall, because we knew the war was almost ending then, because they said the planes have stopped flying.
Wow.
I was just about almost in VJ day.
Okay.
And so when we got back, we had lunch, and then next thing we went to play, the whole band played at the hospital. We played at the hospital. We played a regular band concert, symphonic band concert and so forth. And then the dance band had a dance that night, and the rest of it was off.
All right, now you know that things are improving in the war. What was it like when it was announced that the war was over?
Boy, you're talking about jubilee. Everybody had a real hollering good time.
What happened after the announcement of victory in Japan? What does that do to you as far as your job there in the band?
Well, everything changed. Everything lessened, because then they were getting ready to muster out everybody.
Oh, really?
And then you got out on points. You get so many points for your age, so many points for being in service, so many points if you're married, and so forth, things of that sort. And that's how the group started being broken up, see. And then Honolulu, we had a VJ parade. And that parade, I think we marched about 3 hours, just about all the way through Honolulu.
Well, how much longer after the war ended? How long did you stay in?
VJ Day was August, and I was single, so I had to wait until I got enough points. And I know I was on board ship coming back to California on Thanksgiving Day. I know that because I had Thanksgiving dinner on board a ship. So we got back at the receiving barracks. I forget the name of the receiving barracks. So it's around outside of California, outside of Los Angeles. It wasn't Long Beach. I forgot the name of the place that's where the receiving barracks were. And there were so many sailors going back and forth that we didn't even have any bunk, no place to sleep. And so they say, well, all right, you just coming from overseas. We're going to let you go. You go on liberty, stay out all night, and you come back and get a hot bed. So that's the way the beds were. Somebody sleeping in the day and somebody sleeping at night. So that's what happened. So at nighttime, so we would go out and they let us stay out on liberty all night long, and then we come back and go to bed. You can always go eat on the base,
right.
but while we're out in town, well, we will always go in groups. We go in groups so that you go to the movie and sleep. One's with somebody sleep and others keep watch. See?
I know the war's over. Were people thinking about what their future was going to be?
Yeah, they probably were.
What about you?
Well, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew I was going back to college. And the whole idea was going to continue with pre-med or not. See, that was the whole idea. Well, I don't know, for some reason I gave up on med school and so forth. Well, I found out I couldn't cut it in music. I couldn't take all that trips up and all that practicing. And if you're being around a bunch of musicians, all you want to do is talk music all the time. You want to do something else besides talking music all the time. So I had to give that up. And so luckily, I ran into Randolph Johnson.
In Beaufort?
That's right. He was in the band with me at A&T,
mm-hmm.
but he couldn't get in the Navy because he didn't have one eye. See? So he said he needed a band director. So I told him, I said, I'll come down there if three fellas that want to go. I want the band. Want a job as a band director. So I gave him the name of those three fellas. And he talked to him, and they said, "Oh, if you just let me know when you think you want us," and so forth. And so I guess he must have waited too long because they got jobs otherwise. And so he said, "Well, you promised me if those three didn't go, you'd come." So to keep a promise with him, I said, "Well, I'll stay 1 year," and that 1 year stuck to 37. Well, one reason to stay because I got married. I got married, and that made a difference right there.
A very lovely lady, too, by the way. Abe, looking back at your experience in the military and in the Navy, and by the way, I'm looking at the roster of all the former band members. Do you keep up with one another?
That's right. We keep up with one another all the time.
You experienced a reunion in Chapel Hill. When was that?
Well, we go every year now.
Oh, you do?
This year, A&T has finally decided that, well, we want to do something for us. In 2007, the university in Chapel Hill, they gave us a reception and and put us on the football field and announced to the crowd who we were and all that kind of stuff. And even the town of Chapel Hill, they gave us a proclamation to the county organization, gave us proclamation and so forth.
So this year, North Carolina A&T is going to recognize you.
Yeah, that's right. A&T and an alumni association.
Looking at your experience and the war, I've been amazed by the fact that we did not build a World War II memorial until starting in 2000 and completing it in 2004. No one ever really discussed much about the war after the fact. What was it about the war that people just don't talk about it very much?
Well, in that case, World War II, you figured as your duty. You say, well, there's a war going on, we got to do something about it. And so, all right, here we go. We do something about it.
Abe, looking back at your career, is it something that you've told your children about?
No, not too much. To me, it was just your duty, and well, it just happened to be my duty to be a musician. And they say, well, all you do is play music. I say, you'd be surprised how well music does as far as as in the war concerned.
Well, it was obvious that the Navy thought it was that important that they wanted the entire North Carolina A&T band.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Abe, thank you very much for both your service and your time this evening.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to The War Files, a selection of interviews honoring our warriors of the greatest generation, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. The War Files is a TalkStation presentation.